Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of RE376, where I take old stories I've narrated and updated into modern audio standards. This particular story is called The Attaché, written by Sevrons. Respectfully, that is a horrible idea, Commandant. What do you mean by that? Special Warfare Intel Major to Untroll Miss Duma picked the pen up from Commandant Tefon's desk. He twirled it about his lanky single-joint fingers, with a careless attitude only permitted by members of special warfare groups. In a fight, they'd beat us. I wouldn't want to fight them, laughed the Major. Propaganda, spat the Commandant, his blue glowing eyes darkening to a critical purple. No species had claimed victory over the beer, let alone a combined species of the Castor Belt Military Alliance. Facts, reported Miss Duma. He uncrossed his cartilaginous legs and leaned forward, his elbow on his quads. They built for war, Commandant. They're psychopaths. They don't play by our rules. He took a hollow slate from the table and attached his data node. Green-hued barrack runes circled about the vertical projector as Miss Duma placed it on the table, illuminating the dark and blackened-out security office. Commandant Tefon began to peruse the contents. Case files, helmet cam videos, physical studies. The phosphorescence on his face slowly darkened as Miss Duma's findings became more clear to him. Major Miss Duma ran a medical scan of Staff Sergeant Connell as he squatted in a shell hole. Connell looked at the beer with a mildly distasteful look. Look, Major, I appreciate you trying to look after me and the evil bow. But can I at least enjoy my combat done without half a dozen eyes staring at me? Miss Duma nodded sagely, completing his scan and returning to the vehicles. Miss Duma was fascinated by human physiology and terrified by human mentality. The lower abdomen was akin to a hazardous waste site. The human body subconsciously dumped these toxins before a deadly situation to protect itself against wound infection in the event of a catastrophic injury. Fascinating. The thing that perplexed Miss Duma was that, while he and most of all other beer carried themselves into battle with pack-mounted energy shields, the humans charged in with nothing more than alloy plates strapped around their most vital organs. If they had adopted more advanced technology, they wouldn't have to do what the Staff Sergeant had just done. They would be fully protected against most stray small arms fire. When pushed for an answer on why they preferred such an antiquated protection was, to quote Sergeant Connell, once your shield goes down, you've got a ruck full of shit that you can't use. In this exchange, the sergeant paused, moving the toxic tobacco shreds around his gums. A quick scan of his brain elicited some dopamine release. Plus, we don't play by your rules. The drug use and minimal protection of the troops was a breach of multiple arms treaties and warriors' rights documents. It's all about not getting shot, Major. He grinned madly before boarding the gun buggy. Upon reaching this point in the tape, the Commandant paused. Plates, metal plates, he said, bewildered. Yes. How? He questioned. Steel hardly protected against the rado beams that the beer used. The radiation particle would shoot right through. Not only that, but their notably toxic guts were exposed as well as their limbs. Are we not able to kill an unshielded foe? Is their flesh undying? Funny you mentioned that, Miss Duma waved a finger, spinning the hologram display to a particular video file. He turned the volume down in preparation for the recorded gunfire soon to come. The hologram showed Miss Duma's point of view as the human recondo element made direct contact with the Torridge Royal Guard. Connell's unit had been used as a stopping action, shooting from the eastern flank of the town on fleeing hostiles as the 11th Armored made the primary push. You mean they deployed without any sort of direct heavy armor assistance? Yep. Outnumbered 8-1? I was there. Yes, Commandant, replied the Major, clearly annoyed by the Commandant's disbelief. He played the video on the scene. A human soldier was hit with a flak burst. The shell exploded 8 feet in front of him, and he was showered with burning hot shrapnel. He was thrown to the floor and bloodied. If any sort of shieldless spear soldier had been hit with that, he would have been shredded. Limbs would be flying. However, the human screamed and simply stood back up, returning fire. The soldier was bloodied, but alive. Not only alive, but fighting. The Major spoke over the video. When the fight or flight response within the humans is activated, their skin cools. The Major reached over to the hologram and flipped it to thermals. The skin temperature on all the humans had dropped considerably below normal. This is due to a phenomenon called vasoconstriction. When adrenaline is released, their arteries close considerably, limiting blood flow to the skin level. Instead, blood is redirected to the core, he said, playing the video once more. The view screen showed the soldier being dragged by a plate carrier over behind the safety of the raised road. This effectively prepares the human body to suck up damage. It allows humans such as PFC Morley here to sustain what seems to be life-ending injuries, but stay in the fight long enough to finish it. He motioned to the screen once more. Target attack craft strafing the squad's position as the 50 cal slug throwers returned fire at the craft, cutting through thermal shields like hot blades through a wiggling eel. In the background, there was a scream. The Major's view panned and focused on PFC Morley, at least 4/5 of him. His leg below the knee was nowhere to be found, only a cleanly burning stub. Morley was already being tied off by his squad mate's tourniquet and dragged to safety. "Their bodies are designed to take that," murmured the Commandant. "He survived," confirmed the Major, and resumed fighting 4 days later with prosthesis. "How did they not rot? Trained humans don't rot," grumbled the Special Warfare Agent. "That's a fecking lie," raved the Commandant, laughing. "Every species routed. Even the bear knew when to call it quits. It was instinctual. It was a survival reflex. You can't not rout." Bear pulled up a human brain diagram. "Vasoconstriction isn't only relegated to organs," he said. Slowly, brain activity began to dwindle out in the outer portions of the brain. When one human dies, it triggers something in other humans' brains. It's a self-preservation reflex. They stop thinking logically and socially do exactly what they're programmed to do. The Commandant's eyes were simply dim white now, clearly upset. "Programmed?" "And they're programmed to fight and kill." "Programmed?" he repeated. "It's the training. They use pop-up targets to train and immediate a deadly response to danger." "That's abuse," growled the Commandant. The bear had no such forcible training. Martial training was done at home, taught by the militant member of the family. It allowed them to cut costs and raise a quick army. "Effective abuse produces effective warriors, sir," said Mistuma, his glare reminding the Commandant that he had endured the equally arduous and meritorious special warfare training. "Rewiring a beam like that is a violation of the Jockstein treaties. So is not equipping your soldiers with proper armor, and using heavy kinetic weapons, and killing off the Tauric successionists with flame weapons," sighed the Major, putting up a video showing screaming humans and screaming Taurics. The difference between them was that the Taurics were on fire. The humans were shooting them as they sprinted out of a burning building. "Pickmal," swore the Commandant, staring silently at the war crimes happening on his desk. "I strongly recommend against going to the War Council over the mining embargo, sir," said Mistuma in a serious tone. The normally easygoing Special Warfare Agent was staring beams into the Commandant. Mistuma was a warrior, but the entire species was in danger, and in the hands of the Tefan. "You doubt our military might, Mistuma," mused the Commandant, using the Major's first name. "That's treason, you know. If I didn't like you, I could have you terminated." He looked at him out of the corners of his eyes. Major Mistuma shut off the holostate. "In my time as a human attaché, I witnessed the humans force the Taurics to capitulate Zing 4-2, outnumbered 8-1, with only chemical slug throwers and steel plates, in 12 local days," he stated matter-of-factly, folding his hands. The Taurics were notorious siege defenders. Any species that could pull off a gambit like that was not to be fucked with. Plain and simple. "And the native Taurics love their new leaders, despite the war crimes," he added with a chuckle. He turned serious once more. "They'll fuck us up, Tefan." The Commandant considered Mistuma's words. "Even against the caster belt?" Mistuma sighed. "Sir," he paused, taking a breath in exasperation for how thick-headed his command was being. "These humans didn't even take a stake in the Tauric insurrection. They were there to support the Thevlanes. Most of the soldiers were wondering what the fuck they were doing there." He paused a moment and stared at the ceiling ductwork. "And you want to give them a reason to fight? Respectfully, is your brain deformed?" The Commandant nodded. Admitting weakness would cause a collapse to our power. The Caster Belt would. I fucking told you. They don't play by our rules, bursted Miss Duma. Have you ever experienced genocide, Commandant? Chimed Miss Duma rhetorically. Tevin looked mortified, but held his vocalizers. These humans practice it on each other. Do not give them a reason to apply it to us, ordered Miss Duma. You're out of line, Major, the Commandant stood up, rage boiling in his capillaries. And it seems, Miss Duma paused and looked at his human watch. The Commandant cocked an eyebrow at such a thing. You're out of time, Commandant. Miss Duma stood up and pulled out a sidearm, holding it at arm's length to the commander's forehead. Treason! He yelled, backing up. He knew Miss Duma was a loose cannon. Nope, genocide prevention, Commandant, said a human female voice. Slowly, the hologram of Miss Duma gave way to a human female. She took a beer pheromone simulator off her belt and tossed it over her shoulder. She wouldn't be needing that anymore. She shook her head. I tried the peaceful route, she said angrily. Where's Miss Duma? Hissed the Commandant, searching his belt for a non-existent pistol. Caught him spying. Took this neat disguise rig from him, though. He was a huge help, she said sarcastically, looking at her suit engulf her hands with hollow nodes. At that moment, the Commandant noticed her wearing a BS Special Warfare visual mimicry rig. The Commandant held his hands up. Now, human, this is a massive breach of the Chokstein Treaties. Assassination of officers is strictly prohibited. Stealing technology, prohibited. Political espionage, prohibited. This is a massive war crime. The cycling of the human agent's pistol cut him off. Warrant Officer Angela Martinez exhaled out her nose, wryly, as she began to leave the room. We don't play by your rules, Commandant, she paused, looking back over at the corpse. We're psychopaths. Miss Duma told me so. End of story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.